Hello chess fans, today's video I want to share you round 3 of the Canadian Open. So after losing the last game I was again against a lower rated opponent, so this time a 2000. So again I decided to start off the game with c4. And this is something that I did the whole tournament, just playing something that I really don't know how to play at all. And again we got something similar to what I had in round 1. So my opponent went for e5, I decided to go for knight c3, and here they went f5. So again we saw a similar setup in round 1, you can check in the cards. So I pretty much knew what to do here now, so I decided to go for g3, knight f6, and the idea is just, to fianchetto the bishop. But here I went knight f3, which at first seems a little bit weird, but the idea is because in my last game I got punished because my knight had to go back to g1, but this time I realized that if the knight goes to h4, now I'm never afraid of not bishop g5, the pawn going to g5 because I have knight g2. So my opponent went knight c6, again continuing pretty much the same as my last opponent. Here I was more so expecting bishop b4, and I actually have no idea what to do here. Oh, sorry. I was expecting d6, sorry, not bishop b4 in this position. And I honestly don't know what to do, followed by bishop e7. And yeah, this would have been probably a more topical approach, but my opponent decided to go for knight c6, and here I went for d4. So this was my big idea, is now I've sort of improved because now I can go knight h4 and knight g2. So my opponent went e4, knight h4, and here again my opponent decides to go for this line with d5. So we saw something very, very similar to this. Now we actually saw the same exact position, except with the bishop on g2 and the knight on g1. So here I actually have a much improved version because my bishop's not on g2 and my knight's not on g1. So I can actually go for this move bishop g5. And it's very good for me. Now if he takes here, I can go for here. And I can sort of defend this. And if he goes bishop e6, I have this fork. Notice he can't take with the knight because it's pinned. And if he takes with the bishop, I don't take with the knight because he can take with the queen, but I take here first, he takes back, and then I take and I'm up a piece. Okay, so d takes c4 is not a very good move here. So here I was expecting this move b4, then I was thinking e3 to defend the pawn, and here a sample line might go like this, castles, something like this would happen. And then here I thought I was slightly better because, okay, I've gotten rid of my dark squared bishop, we have a French, he pretty much has no attack after I go h4, especially if he goes like king h8 or king h7, I can go h4, h5, and okay, I have a nice better position, and this position scores well for white. Okay, but instead he went for this move e3, which again is just really, really surprising. So yeah, other than bishop b4, like I'm pretty sure my opponent saw d takes c4 is a bad move and decided to go for e3, which is objectively quite a bad move, but I ended up making a lot of mistakes in a row. Okay, so here I took, my opponent took, and I went for d5, just claiming some space. And again, we have a very, very similar position to what I previously had in the other round. So here I was feeling sort of comfortable knowing that I got a better version. So knight e5, bishop g2, all natural, bishop d6, and here I make another really, really bad move. So here probably I should go for bishop d4, threatening takes, and queen a4 to win the pawn. So after bishop d4, he probably has the castle, and I have ideas like going queen a4, always to take here. Well, queen a4 maybe immediately is met by here, so maybe queen c2, and then like rook d1, and always I have ideas of taking here, maybe following up with knight f3 and queen d4, so lots of ideas. And the bishop also allows the pawn to move. But instead I went for knight f3, which is maybe the start of going in the wrong direction. Here my opponent goes bishop d7, which is a good move, and here I go knight d4. And it's really unclear what the knight's actually doing here. I'm not even sure what my idea was. Yeah, in hindsight this move looks really bad. Here probably I should just castle, or again go bishop d4 with similar ideas. But yeah, knight d4 is a bad move because now his knight is quite nice. He went a6, stopping the knight from ever coming to b5. Here I went a4, queen e7. So here he's keeping flexible of which way he wants to go, and after castle he decides to castle. So here I was kind of worried about this move, castle's queenside, and my plan actually was to go knight b5, which at first looks like really dumb, like aren't you just blundering a knight? But the idea is actually that rook a8 is a really hard threat to stop, and if he goes like king b8, then I go queen a4, and it's game over because I'm mating him next move. If he goes c6, I have bishop b6. But what I didn't actually see what to do on is bishop e8. And so then I just discarded this. I was like, okay, it doesn't work. But apparently here there's some dirty engine line with this move b6, which at first doesn't even make any sense at all because now you can't even go queen a4. And also the idea of bishop e8 is so that after rook a1 he has king d7. So b6. So now I'm actually threatening to go check and then queen a4, check. And his king has no squares. And for example, if he takes, I can go takes. A move like bishop c7 to save the rook. I have here, and queen a4, and there's no way to defend it. He's going to get mated here. So yeah, a really, really interesting line. Maybe he shouldn't take. I'm not even sure what he should do. Okay, he should go like queen b8. And okay, rook a7 is really, really dangerous with all kinds of threats. If he goes like h5 or something, then I can go queen a1. So yeah, really, really engine-like stuff, so I didn't actually fully see this. My plan was really just to go queen c2, and I thought I'm putting pressure here. Maybe if this knight goes away, or maybe this knight can sacrifice now itself. Bishop f4 ideas, take here, win the pawn on c4, maybe push b3 in the future. I thought my position was nice, and it is. So he decides to castle kingside. Here I went queen d2, and yeah, again I made a bad move. Here I should have gone bishop f4, and I saw this, the idea being to take, and go knight f3, but I just thought maybe queen d2 is more flexible, but queen d2 actually loses the move because I really want my queen to go to d4. Rook a b8. Here I went for bishop f4 now, and he went for knight g6, which is maybe a bad move. Here I was expecting this move b5, and I think both me and my opponent saw this after knight c6, takes, and my opponent evaluated this as better for me. I evaluated this position as probably close to equal, and I think the entrance is somewhere in between, like plus 0.5, so this was also another valid option for my opponent, but knight g6 maybe gives me a little bit of a larger advantage. Takes, and here I went for a5, which is a good move. He went rook b d8, so maybe rook b8 was a waste of a move if he's not going to go b5. Rook f d1, and yeah, this was a really, really bad move. This was the start of me going maybe in the wrong direction, so I started playing very bad from here. Up to this point, I've kept a very steady edge, but I have played some bad moves here and there. But rook f d1 is pretty egregious because obviously he wants to go f4 and start attacking on the king side with all his pieces here. So why am I moving away one of my defenders? Really what I should do here is go knight f3. Now what I was worried about is that after f4, queen d4, for example, takes, he had this move queen b4. And I thought that, okay, maybe he's threatening this. I'm kind of scared of that. He's also threatening a5, so I can't move my rook easily. And I didn't see what to do. But here I have a really brilliant move, b3. Using the fact the pawn's pinned, he has to take with the queen, and then I can go rook fb1, and after queen c2, rook a2 here, I can take. And then all the pawns are falling. Maybe even a7 is falling, and c4 is even falling. So all his pawns are falling here, and I'm completely winning. So yeah, I didn't actually see any of this. None of this is forced, by the way. He doesn't have to go for this move queen b4. He can continue attacking on the king side, but then he's going to have to give up the c4 pawn. So this would have been much more clean. But instead I went rook fd1, he went f4, and I showed my idea, which was to go knight e6. So this was my whole idea, was just to get the knight on e6. Now I'm threatening here. Now, I'm pretty sure rook f7 is a blunder. I'm trying to think of why. Oh, yeah, sorry, just knight f takes f4. That was my whole idea. So he took. And now, sorry, he can maybe go for rook f7, but then I would go knight g5, and after takes here, something like knight ge4, trading a bunch of pieces, looking to push the pawn, should be completely winning for me. Okay, but instead he took, takes, and here I took on b7, pretty much the only move. Apparently knight d5 was also good here, but I think it's a little bit too engine-like. And here we went c6, which was the move I was sort of expecting, and I thought I calculated that it was losing after queen d6, queen h3, and then here, actually both me and my opponent are pretty much down to like seconds. Like I think I have like a 2 minutes here or 1 minute here, so I pretty much have no time. And because of it, I actually ended up immediately making a massive blunder. So here I'm like +1, and okay, it's pretty clear white has a threat. Black has a threat. So they want to go knight g4, and we want to meet knight g4 with maybe queen g2. Because if we go queen g2, let's say he takes, bishop takes, if the queen gets to either of these squares, takes, bishop takes. If he takes with the rook, then we have bishop f3, and if he takes with the knight, I'm trying to remember, maybe we can just go bishop d5 and then takes on c4. So that's what we want. That's how we're defending knight g4. We can also go rook d4, but then after knight g4, we have to sacrifice the exchange, which we don't really want to do. So the move is either takes or takes. So take a few minutes to see if you can calculate it here. Here, like, just remember that I had like maybe like 1 minute or something. Yeah, and this was a really bad game for time management. I spent way too much time in positions that did not deserve any time spent. And I ended up playing bad moves anyways, so yeah, here I ended up blundering the game away. And I blundered it from around +1.5 to complete equality, but I think that I probably would have lost the game if my opponent found the right response. So the correct move, if you're wondering, is queen takes. And the idea is that he has no way to prevent queen g2 coming next. I played bishop takes, which looks more natural because it hits the rook too, so you would expect, like, you know, the rook to move somewhere. But here he has this brilliant move, knight e5. And okay, he's starting knight g4, so I have to do something about that, because I can't take the rook, because then knight g4, and I lose the game, and I don't have queen d5. So I have to go like bishop g2, he goes queen h5, and now I don't have a way to stop knight g4. This knight coming to g4, how do I stop that? I literally can't, so I have to play a move like here, so that maybe I can get takes, and then queen d5 trading queens, but now he just takes, wins his pawn back, I defend. And the engine says you have to pay really weird moves like queen f4, and after it takes, knight h5. I mean, apparently I'm not losing here, but like, I mean, it's hard to think that I can possibly be winning here. But instead he went rook e5, which I think is a more human move, stopping queen d5 ideas, also getting the rook out of the attack. But now I have bishop g2, queen h6. Again, he should have probably gone queen h5. I'm really not sure why he didn't do this. I would have gone bishop f3, and after knight g4, I would have taken. Here I went knight. I went not knight. I went rook d4, stopping knight g4, queen h5, and now I went bishop f3. And now again, he can't go knight g4 because now it's just hanging. So he has to go queen g5, and yeah, at this point we're down to seconds, and he just played like wasted 3 moves in a row. And here I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea why I didn't just grab 2 pawns. I saw some sort of ghost with like knight f4, knight h4, h5. I don't know. I have literally saw some sort of ghost here. I'm probably scared of ghosts, but yeah, just 2 free pawns and then start pushing the pawn. I have no idea what I was doing. But here I went rook d1, like hanging the pawn. Yeah, I mean, I can't really blame myself. I'm playing pretty much bullet game here, and so is my opponent. He went h5. And here I went knight e4 because I just desperately wanted to trade pieces because I was deathly afraid of getting mated. Takes on a5, takes here, knight e5 with a seemingly fork, but here I have bishop d5, knight f7, and here I can not really explain my move whatsoever. Here it should be obvious. Rook f4 is just completely winning because next you take, go queen e6, and I mean it's pretty much game over. He has no way to do anything, and I think that if I played this, my opponent would have resigned in a few more moves, but for some reason I played bishop takes f7, getting rid of my pin. Yeah, I think this type of move is what really signified how I was playing in this tournament. Like, I was making several blunders every game, and my idea was after here I have rook f4, and then somehow I missed rook takes f7, or I think I might have thought I had queen d8 to pick up the rook, but first off he can take, but second off the rook's also defended, so yeah, I have really no idea what I was thinking here. Now I went queen e6, threatening some rook f4 ideas, but he goes rook f5, and already I'm sad. Then I go rook c8, king h7, and maybe here I should go queen e4 with another pin, but at this point, I mean, it's starting to get dicey. Instead I go rook d8, and take a few seconds to see if you can find the best move here for black. Here black has a very nice move. I won't say how winning it is because it might be a lot more obvious, but yeah, here my opponent, both me and my opponent have like 30 seconds. You have 30 seconds to find a move. Obviously white's threatening a mate in 1, right? White's threatening a mate in 1, so you have to do something about that. And that's what my opponent actually did. My opponent played queen f6. But here, what's basically the beauty of amateur chess is here, I mean, if my opponent had 5 minutes, I'm sure they see the killer blow. Pause the video if you haven't seen it yet. Queen takes g3. Like, honestly, just an absolutely brilliant move that I completely didn't see. Takes back, check here, checkmate. Pawn on h5 coming in clutch. So yeah, just absolutely brilliant. Something that you might expect to see like in a puzzle. I'm sure even like 1300s, if you gave them this as a puzzle, they would probably see the mate. But okay, in the game, 30 seconds, I mean, this type of thing is sort of difficult to see sometimes, and both me and my opponent actually missed this. And I looked at the game very briefly by myself with my opponent, like just talking after the game, not with the board or anything. And then like, okay, we got to this position and we thought, okay, black's probably gonna lose somehow, and you probably messed up the end game, you're probably already losing. But yeah, we didn't even realize I had blundered mate. So this is definitely the biggest blunder I've ever made. Though granted, in this tournament I made several blunders that actually, I think maybe even the next game after this, I made an even bigger blunder than this. But this is a blunder of a mate. So yeah, this tournament is basically marred by huge blunders by me. So he went queen f6. Now I took. Now we see a pretty instructive rook endgame. So lucky for me, before this tournament, one thing I had done was I had studied a bunch of endgames. So that's where I was looking to sort of beat my opponents pretty much in the endgame, because I had recently been studying that, and that's the reason I decided to play the English this tournament. Because I thought the English gets to endgames much more often than e4 does, and I also thought that I will get out of my comfort zone quickly, pretty much. Because I'm comfortable with e4, but if I play something I'm uncomfortable with, get through these bad positions, I think I'll learn a lot more about chess. So I went f4, rook b5 here, and here I'm not really sure why my opponent didn't just take. Like, this looks a lot more drawish. Like, yes, I have a passed e-pawn, but yeah, it's notorious that rook versus rook in the endgame, like, it's often going to be a draw if you're defending. You want to trade one pair of rooks because now I can't create any weaknesses. But I went he went rook c5, king f2, here rook f3, a5. Again, this is probably a bad move. Now this pawn is a little bit weaker. Rook d3. Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just waiting. And now he went rook c1, like just a complete blunder, blundering rook d5. Now I have a double attack with on the g5 square and the a5 pawn, and now he goes h4. Check here, takes, and now I'm even threatening a mate. And so I'll just skip forward a few moves to maybe the next interesting position. Also important to note that if I go king takes g3, I lose. So takes on g3, and now we get to this endgame with the pawn spaced out by two squares, sorry. And this is maybe an endgame that a lot of lower rated players might not know how to win, but it's actually not very difficult. Now, if there was a pawn, like if this pawn was not here, it is a draw. And the way to draw it is just to give checks from the long side and then eventually go behind the pawn. But, okay, my opponent didn't even have to know that because, I don't even have to worry about that because I have this extra pawn here. And the idea is basically we're going to distract the king with this pawn at some point and then get into a Lucina or a Philidor position with best defense. But okay, my opponent actually didn't even force me to do that. So the first step is to bring the king back. Now if the king ever goes for the pawn, I can start marching my king up and get that Lucina or Philidor, or sorry, that Lucina position, not the Philidor position, because then he would draw. So king c3, preventing him from coming in. King out the rook. Bring in the king, bring in the pawn, bring up the pawn. Now I get the pawn to e6, and now I'm perfectly fine giving away this pawn as long as my king's on d7 or something. And that's what I do next. Rook c1, king d5, rook here, rook c4, rook e1, rook e4, here, rook d4. Now king d6, now I'm perfectly fine losing this pawn, rook c1, e7. And actually here my opponent resigned after their own move. So yeah, I think pretty instructive endgame, and pretty instructive way that you can pretty much blunder a game and still actually manage to win. So yeah, if you like this video, please remember to leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.